Hey, what's up, everyone? It is wow, what a day! What a day! I mean, I wasn't I wasn't planning on doing a show tonight. No intention. Did it BRAP rant on Friday with Game Logic. Great rant, by the way. If you didn't get a chance, if you haven't checked out Friday's rant, I would encourage you to check that out. But yeah, I wasn't anticipating. I wasn't anticipating on a Sunday of all days. I wasn't anticipating what happened today to happen. To happen. I mean, it just. Look, I'm not surprised by today's news. What we've heard now, obviously, these things haven't been officially collaborated just yet from Microsoft, from Xbox, from the Xbox leadership, Phil Spencer, but they haven't denied it either. And but real quick, I do want to welcome everyone here, everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening. Very impromptu, last minute rant. I just tweeted the link out, I think, like 30 minutes ago. I'm going to drop the link for the podcast here. If you could do me a favor, retweet the link, post it on Facebook, your favorite social media platform, whatever they may be. Just let everyone know that we're live. Bender String says, if Microsoft truly gets out of the console business, do you foresee anyone else attempting to compete in that space? Honestly, Bender Strings, unless Apple, Amazon, Google, they tried, they put their hat into the gaming space with cloud streaming that didn't pan out for them. I think it's a very difficult proposition. It's very difficult to enter the hardware space and be successful. I think one of the only reasons Microsoft has been able to sustain, or the Xbox is able to sustain the level of the amount of longevity that it's had over 22 years, 23 years, is that they were backed by Microsoft. I mean, the Red Ring of Death may have killed any other console manufacturer. If it was, but Xbox has the backing of Microsoft. I forget how much the Red Ring cost them, but it was a couple billion, I believe. So I don't know if Bender. I don't see. Unless I think, in my mind, I'm thinking the only people that could come in this space would be like one of the big six in big tech right now. I don't think Google's going to want to come in and make hardware, because, I mean, that doesn't really align with their core competencies to make hardware like that. And Amazon, too. But the things that we heard today, and I'm going to get into Starfield. There's always some rumbling about Starfield. I remember thinking to myself, there's a lot of conversation behind the scenes that I was hearing that this thing may be coming to PlayStation 5. It's not a matter of if, but when. And that never went away. And here we are. Xbox era reported today. Microsoft plans Starfield launch for PlayStation 5. Xbox era reports, according to our sources who have asked to remain anonymous because they're not authorized to talk about company plans. The list of games also includes Bethesda Game Studios, Starfield. According to the sources, we understand that currently Microsoft is planning a launch for Starfield on PlayStation 5 post the release of the already announced Shattered Space expansion for Xbox and PC, which is on target to arrive at some point later this year. We've also been informed that Microsoft has made additional investments into PlayStation 5 development kits to support ongoing development efforts, adding further fuel to the fire. As the already existing rumors have suggested, the idea of bringing first-party titles to competing console platform marks a massive change in strategy for Microsoft. And from what I understand, it's not been without fierce internal debate on this new direction. Releasing Starfield on PlayStation 5 contradicts the original statement around exclusivity made by President of Xbox Sarah Bond during the Xbox Bethesda Games Studio Summer Showcase in 2021. Look, if you've been listening to BRAP for a long time, and this goes back years, by the way. Hopefully B Money joins us on Wednesday, because I'm sure B is going to be like, what did I tell you all? But I remember B Money, and when Eric Jackson was part of the panel, when they announced the Play Anywhere initiative, the writing was on the wall. Once you could the conversation, the word track for Microsoft changed. They started introducing games, their first party games on PC. They were basically trading a sale for another sale, more or less. Then they pivot to play your games everywhere. And that's been that's been a central theme. A central theme to or for Xbox. Play your games anywhere. We want to tear down that walled garden. More games everywhere. It's great for consumers. The Room says, I heard Indiana Jones is also coming to PS5. That is one of the other games that is apparently in discussion to be released on PlayStation 5. But, you know, it's couple lessons here. There's a couple things I want to discuss. I want to discuss the idea of Xbox, and let's just call a spade a spade. I mean, they're essentially a third party now, publisher. And for a while, I've been saying that their behavior is analogous to that of a third party publisher. But at this point, I mean, they're essentially a third party publisher. You're bringing your exclusive games, Starfield. And there's others, Hi-Fi Rush. I've also heard that Hellblade 2, Forza Horizon 5 could also be making their ways to PlayStation 5. Chris Jones said Zood, Mixer, Xbox. And that's what we've talked about on this show too, Chris. Game Logic has been very vocal, but he's discussed how reminiscent this behavior is of how Microsoft has treated other products, other hardware products like Zune and Windows Phone. And if you've been listening to the show on a regular basis, and if you're not, you should be, Logic's discussed his own experience with the Windows Phone platform when he was a Windows Phone owner. And how the behavior changed at Microsoft, how they started, the voice track changed, and how they discussed Windows Phone. How they started they started offering some of the apps and features that were exclusive to Windows Phone to other phones. And then we saw what happened to Windows Phone. But no one should be surprised by this. No one should be surprised by this news. They've been telling you what their plans are. They have literally been telling you. And We've said this on this show. I've said this when Tim Stewart said they were going to pivot. And I was told, no, Brap. That they were talking about ABK only. No, they weren't. It was a two-part question. And if you listen to the audio of that interview with Tim Stewart, he discusses ABK, but he also discusses their pivot. He said they're pivoting their strategy as it relates to first-party games. What does the word pivot mean? It means a change. It's a change. They made a change. They were changing. They told you this. I don't understand. Like, what is happening? What is happening? They told you what was going to happen. They have been telegraphing this. They've been telling you what they're doing. I've speculated that when they saw that revenue come in for Call of Duty, and they're thinking, geez, the Xbox business has really struggled for us. Man, we got all these games here. We've got, you have to imagine that they're looking at sales of Starfield and they're thinking, okay, let's look at what other Bethesda games have done on PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation platform. We've cannibalized that. Do we want to do that? We just spend $90 billion or $80 billion or whatever it is on Activision Blizzard. They got to recoup that money back. That's not free money. That's not free money. What's up, T-Rock? There is that rumor of Halo multiplayer going to PlayStation 5 too, T-Rock. I will be playing Halo on PlayStation, the multiplayer, because if you would have told me, and for those who don't know, I was an Xbox Live beta tester. If you would have told me after the launch of the first Halo Combat Evolved that Halo would be on the PlayStation one day, I would have laughed. Be like, you're an idiot. There's no way that's going to happen. It's about an ecosystem for Microsoft, but they have been saying this. And I don't know if it's I don't know. I don't know if it's willful ignorance. I don't know what it is. I don't know how people in the Xbox community didn't see this. Didn't see this coming. And I think, unfortunately, the problem is that it's a situation where, we talk about, we discuss the echo chambers. We talk about, and Logic has discussed his experience. The panel members have discussed their experience. It's funny. I was talking to Eric Jackson today, as a matter of fact. And Eric and I were talking about how people used to, chastise us for suggesting that Microsoft at some point may be heading down this road. That the hardware, the Xbox hardware, wouldn't be the core of their business anymore in gaming. And people were upset when we said that. We were chastised. And he's right. You've heard Logic talk about on this show the suppression of information and how some of the more fanatic Xbox fans kind of behave like they're in a cult. You may have heard me refer to them as MAGA supporters, MAGA-like at least, far-right extremist. Let me grab this super chat here from Bobby Jackson with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Bobby. Says, please check my math on this, but so far it seems like they've only made Bethesda and rumored Blizzard games cross-platform. You think they want to keep their other first-party games exclusive? Well, Halo, if the Halo thing is true, I've heard that Forza 5 is also coming. Those aren't Blizzard, ABK, Bethesda first-party games. If they release these games, and these games sell well on PlayStation, bet your bottom dollar that they start releasing other games on PlayStation, Nintendo. They're going to see that money. And what do companies like? They love money. Companies love money. Shareholders love money. And this is where I go back to some of the I don't know if people really truly love gaming. I don't know if they do, because some of the reaction that I'm seeing by some of the Xbox community, not all. And by the way, when I say the fanatical side of the Xbox community, I'm referring to like the bad actors or the people that spread misinformation, disinformation. I'm not saying that everyone in the Xbox community fits that description, because they are some level-headed Xbox content creators and those in the Xbox community who they carry themselves in a way that's they carry themselves as adults. Kabini Gaming says, man, rumors got people all up in their feels. Let's just sit tight and see what happens. Look, Kubini, I will say that, yes, while I don't disagree that this hasn't been officially collaborated by Microsoft or Xbox, this thing is happening. And when you see sites like Xbox Air reporting, Kubini Gaming, that this is in fact is happening, this is happening. And I've heard from other people that I trust that are in the know that this is happening. Yeah, Tom Warren and now VGC are reporting this as well. That's right. Thank you, Jilly Bomber 1. Windows Central's reporting this. I mean, like, guys, like, when these sites are reporting, I mean, this is, and look, the other thing too, Kubini Gaming, is Microsoft hasn't come out and denied any of this. Usually they do. They're not doing that. Kubini Gaming says, okay, so it's happening. My games are day one Game Pass. You all want to pay $70 for our games? Go for it. Okay. What's wrong with that, Kubini? You use Game Pass? That's perfectly fine. Not everyone sees value in Game Pass, by the way, Kabini. And if people want to pay $70 for a game as opposed to subscribing to a subscription service they might not use, that's fine too. As you should be on PC Game Pass, because PC is the best gaming platform. Play Beyond says the war is over. Console war's over. Yeah, I mean, like I've seen that tweet that the console war's over. Yeah, it's done. And I got to be honest with you, as a consumer, I don't want Sony being the only high-end console exclusive manufacturer in the gaming industry. I'd like to see some competition. That's not going to happen now in the console space. Yeah, Bobby Jackson. I don't disagree with you, Bobby. Like, competition's great for gamers. Competition's great for gamers. Yeah, Sam Walton, he says that's what it's looking like. Shaking my head. Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, I agree. I love PC gaming though. I'm not gonna lie. And it's funny when Xbox, when they pivoted to putting their games and day and date on PC as well in the introduction of Game Pass Ultimate. I was like, I'm going to go PC. It just made sense to me. T-Rock says, I blame Nintendo. They pissed off Sony in the 90s. Yeah, we actually should thank Nintendo for Sony, for PlayStation, because that's exactly what happened, T-Rock. T-Rock's not exaggerating. Nintendo left Sony at the altar, and Sony's like, no. We're not doing that. But as I said, the writing was on the wall. And if you look at Microsoft and if you listen to what Satya Nadella has said about the company, you look at what Microsoft is as a company, what their core competencies are. The one I think, and I said this, I think I said this on Crossfire recently. The one outlier to their business, at least the one outlier that I saw with Microsoft and their business was Xbox. And now Xbox seems to be aligning with Microsoft's core competencies, what they do best. They're a software as a service company. They sell software. We've heard Satya Nadella say that he didn't believe in exclusives. Didn't make sense to him. T-Rock says you don't spend $70 billion to limit your market. Yeah, I think, look, if they were really interested in competing in the console space, they don't buy Activision and then put it everywhere. Or Call of Duty and put it everywhere. Or they don't come on the Kind of Funny's the I forget the Xbox show on Kind of Funny, but Xcast. Is it Xcast? I always forget. Phil Spencer doesn't go on there and say, look, we can't out-console Sony and Nintendo. And if you can't out-console your competition and then your hardware sales are declining and you need hardware to sell software, what do you do? What do you do as a company? There's two things you do. You either leave, try something different, or I should say not try, but you exit the console space, the business, you're like, I'm out. Or you pivot your business model. You leverage your strengths as an organization. You leverage your core competencies. That's what they're doing. And to be honest with you, hearing Hellblade 2 and Forza Horizon 5 coming to PlayStation 5, I mean, that is shocking. Because those are games that aren't part of the ABK ZeniMax Bethesda family. So, I don't think they're going to be exiting hardware anytime soon. I would imagine that they're going to still make Xbox console hardware because it's the hardware. It's all about the ecosystem. The hardware's never. It's not the center or the core feature of the of the ecosystem anymore. It's not. So I think for the time being, you're still going to get Xbox hardware. For those, and they're going to make it for those people who want to play or want to buy Xbox hardware. There's a contingent of people out there, 35, 40, 50 million people, consumers who will buy an Xbox. And they'll be happy playing their games on Xbox. Because they built their digital library there. They have their friends list. But Tim Stewart, he said it. We're going to pivot. And that's what they're doing. And I said this on the show. Listen to when the C-suite speaks. Listen closely to what they're telling you. And I'm amazed by some people who are fanatical about Xbox. that they haven't, like, it's almost like they don't understand the business that Microsoft's in. They don't understand their core competencies. They don't understand how Xbox doesn't fit into that. They don't understand that for like 20 something years, Xbox really has been about maybe 5% of Microsoft's business. And there's an opportunity for Microsoft to leverage Xbox to leverage it in a way that plays on the strengths of of Microsoft, the company. And that's by you talk about software everywhere on multiple devices. And think about what comes with that. They talk about like the way you develop video games. I just read an article that Game Logic shared with the BRAP team. I think he actually he retweeted this too on Twitter today, or on X. I'm going to retweet the article here. Read this article. It's an interview with Sarah Bond from 2023, January of last year. And we talk about them leveraging their leveraging Microsoft or Xbox, leveraging Xbox to fit into Microsoft's core competencies as an organization. And if you read that article, one of the things that stands out to me, they talk about bringing games everywhere. It's not just about bringing games to just more consumers, more gamers, but that also creates a dynamic, and you'll read this in the article, where developers have to think differently about how they design video games to be able to release those games on any platform. And that requires a new set of tools. And they want to be able to provide those tool sets that developers might not have to bring their games to as many platforms as possible in a very seamless way. They also want to be that delivery mechanism. Microsoft wants to position Xbox to be the center of everything gaming. You probably have heard Logic talk about this on this show on BRAP, where he's talked about Microsoft wants, when it comes to gaming, they want every game or every consumer to have some kind of touch point with Xbox or Microsoft gaming. So it's really, this is way beyond the core console now. Core console is just something that they have if you want it. It's not the focus anymore. And I don't understand how people miss that. Like when they released the Series X, they talked about it eats monsters for men. And then that marketing doesn't sync up with their software releases. You didn't see a game that really showed off that this console was the most powerful console. Let me grab these super chats by Bobby Jackson with another $10 super chat. Thank you again, Bobby. Says, do you think Microsoft might pivot to a handheld system similar to what a Switch does, since Sony doesn't have one, or think they get completely out of the hardware space? So I don't think they're going to get completely out of the hardware space, at least for now. I don't know if they would do something similar to the Switch, like a handheld with a docking station. That would maybe make sense. I always thought with Game Pass, it would make sense to have it handheld. I mean, you see what the ROG Ally has done with being able to run games, and the Steam Deck, be able to play games or access your library on a portable device. I mean, it seems like that would make sense to me, that they would do that, but who knows? Remember the leaks? There was a leak about the hardware team suggesting the next Xbox could be based on ARM architecture. Which that screams more of like a cloud-based platform. So, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, mean, I just think considering the route they're going and be able to carry having access to Game Pass on the fly, and if you're able to bring those experiences to gamers, whether or not they're gaming on the front of their TV or on the go, I mean, yeah, I mean that Sarah Bonds talked about that, like, hey, we having the ability to cross save, cross share, like your games, like being able to stop a game on the console and then pick it up on your phone on the go and carry your progress with you. I mean, in that regard, I think in that sense, maybe what you described, like a Switch-like Xbox device, would make sense. Bobby Jackson with another $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Bobby. I really appreciate the support. Says, I liken the console wars to the early times of the cola wars. At first, it was a competition, but now Coke is strongly number one. Pepsi's still around with the cola, but has other products as well. Thank you for that super chat, Bobby. I do prefer Coke to Pepsi. Donnell Brown says, shaking my head, you unfollow me on Twitter. Did I? Did I really, Donnell? Huh. I may have mistaken that. I may have done that by accident. Hey, Donnell, send me a DM on Twitter. Send me a DM on Twitter. Another $2 super chat from Donnell Brown. How do you feel about your new coach and OC? Look, I don't mind the Dan Quinn hire. I don't think it's a terrible hire. I know some people are poo-pooing the hire. But look, he's an experienced head coach. He has a great reputation around the league. He will not be selecting players. He's got a competent general manager that will be doing that, which is I see people. I know people are comparing the hire to Ron Rivera because they're both defensive coordinators, but the big difference here is that there's actually a GM in place now that will be picking, drafting players and things like that. So Ron Rivera, he missed on every draft pick basically that he made, except for maybe Terry McLaurin. But yeah. But yeah, send me a DM, Donnell. I may have unfollowed you by accident. Cliff Kingsbury, is it? Cliff? Is that his name? Cliff Kingsbury? I think I don't know too much about Cliff Kingsbury. I know he was the coach of the Arizona Cardinals at one point. He coached Patrick Mahomes, who's at Texas Tech, but that's all I know. Don Matrick doesn't look so bad now, huh? Yeah. Donnie D. Bobby Jackson says, at this point, the Surface might be the last machine standing for Microsoft. Even that has been dipping lately, yeah. Yeah, they pulled back a little bit on Surface. World-renowned GeoHound says, I pointed out you agreed how the Xbox Direct wasn't impressive. I was baffled by the gaslighting around Indiana Jones presentation. Felt like Game Pass filler, we caught flack. Here we are. I mean, I actually like the Direct. I'm not sure. I don't think I ever said it wasn't impressive. Actually, the Xbox Direct is why I resubbed to Game Pass again. So, but yeah, I mean, again, this isn't. I go back and this isn't like hearing that Starfield, other Xbox games are coming to PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch. Like none of this is surprising to me. And when Tim Stewart, the CFO, was like, "Hey, like we're gonna pivot," like that was that was like, hey, there we go. Donnell Brown with another super chat, $5 super chat. Thank you, Donnell. I have to say you're right about letting your Xbox go. It's the best. It is best to go PC. I'm going PC now. Yeah, Donnell, I'm telling you, I love the flexibility of PC. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, okay, I see what you're saying. World renowned. Yeah, no, I agree. Like if you're disappointed, like people should be shunned or ignored because they that something didn't resonate with them. We all have different tastes as gamers. Not all those games are like the state of play. Not all the games that they showed at the state of play are going to resonate with everyone. But Donnell, back to the PC thing. Like it's, I mean, I love it. It's one of the best moves I've ever made going PC. I just telling. I was actually I was playing a little bit of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink because I bought it on Steam, and I did play the demo on PlayStation 5. The demo looked pretty good on PS5, but it was like 1080p. I think it was like 1440p 30 FPS and then 1080p 60 FPS. And it didn't look bad. But I cranked it up to 4K on my PC at 60 FPS ultra settings and whoo, oh man. Oh, it looks so good. So good. T-Rock says Silent Hill remake looks like butt. Bloober for real. I wasn't too impressed with what we saw in Silent Hill, but we'll see. I mean, we'll hopefully they stick the landing, as we say. We'll see what happens. BRAP, what will not brat? BRAP, you mean? BRAP, what will happen next for Microsoft? Regards to Xbox? I think this is it. This is the direction they're heading. We're going to see more first party stuff release on other consoles. It's going to be interesting to see if these releases are staggered. Sam Watson says 2027 came faster than we thought, huh? Look, the Xbox brand isn't going anywhere. It's just that the console just isn't the priority anymore. It's not the focus. But they've been telling us this. This is why I don't understand why people are surprised. They've been telling us this. All right, just wait. Okay, we're not going to console war in here. We're not going to do that. We're not going to cheer at at people being upset. That Microsoft's bringing other games to other platforms. But I'm just for me, none of this surprises me, and I'm just shocked by some people actually being surprised. Yeah, I know you typed wrong, CTR. It's all good. But this is the direction they're going, and it makes sense for them. I mean, they own valuable IPs now, IPs that people will buy in droves. They want to change. They want to be the middleman in the market now. They want to provide the tools, resources to allow gamers to allow developers to make their games accessible on any device that can play a video game. They want developers who don't have the infrastructure for cloud to utilize Azure. I mean, in that interview, the interview that I linked in the chat, the Sarah Bond interview, she talks about the democratization of game development and giving developers resources that they don't have to be able to compete at scale and make these great and make games. Now that part concerns me a bit. If you've listened to our show, you've probably heard us talk about enshittification. You probably heard Logic say that word quite a bit. Enshittification. We talked about choke point capitalism on the show. We talked about it during the ABK hearing. But this is kind of where they're positioning to be the middleman. between the consumer and the developers. One of the things that Sarah Bond says in this article, she says the capability takes our platform, which used to be tied to a specific piece of hardware, and it makes it playable anywhere. She's talking about the capability of having Azure, things like that, at their disposal at Xbox. So again, she says the capability takes our platform, which used to be tied to a specific piece of hardware, Xbox, and it makes it playable anywhere. It dramatically accelerates the platform's reach. So they're talking about, okay, we have this thing, Xbox, but we have this platform we can use that will allow us to reach gamers without the proposition of a $500 box, which I'll get to in just a second. So it dramatically accelerates the platform's reach. It makes it dramatically more valuable for players because you can play anywhere. And that capability makes our platform dramatically more valuable for developers because they can build a game that's playable anywhere. So this is where, see, that's what I said earlier, trying to position themselves as the middleman. They want everyone, they want every game, every developer, every consumer to have some kind of touch point with them. And as we go back to, if you listen to previous shows, what we've talked about here with choke point capitalism and shittification of, kind of being the big tech companies being the middlemen, kind of, and pitting in this case, the developers and consumers against each other. So it takes that core value proposition, which used to be linked to buying a $500 device, and it has unleashed it to be playable on any device on the planet. So again, this is 2022. She's saying this. That right there. So it takes the core value proposition, which used to be linked to buying a $500 device. She's basically saying like that is not the case anymore. And that's what we've been saying on this show. They are literally telling you that the Xbox console is not the core of what they're doing. They don't want that to be the core value proposition in the equation here. It's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing it. This is what we've been trying to say on the show for a long time. And like I said earlier, if you've listened to us more recently, you've listened to what Logic has been, because Logic is really, he's discussed the idea of shittification, choke point capitalism quite a bit on the show, and on his show as well, and on social media. Pay attention. Have to give that man his flowers. This is 2022, so think about that. She's saying, so it takes that core value proposition, which used to be linked to buying a $500 device. Well, what's $500? The Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5. So here's one part. So before I read those two paragraphs, there's another paragraph before that. So the question, I should have framed it. The question was to Sarah Bond was, so the gaming platforms and the Azure platform become mutually reinforcing. She says, it may not seem like it to the outside observer, but there are enormous amounts of synergies between what Microsoft is doing in the cloud and what we are doing in gaming. Because what we've really done with Xbox Cloud Gaming, because we put both the Xbox Series X and S into Azure, is to provide the capability to play a game rendered completely from Azure that can be played on any device regardless of its local compute. Again, I mean, this is, and again, that changes how developers are going to, create games. They're trying to change that. And earlier in the interview, she actually talks about how the traditional models doesn't really support that today. They're trying to flip that and in their favor. Again, what do companies like doing? They like making money. Microsoft wants to be the center. They want to be the middleman. They will make more money doing that than selling hardware. And they've been struggling to sell hardware. If you don't believe me, look at the numbers. Look at the hardware numbers. They've been in negative growth. So what do you do when you can't sell hardware? You have to pivot as a business, or you exit stage left. You're gone. You make changes. You pivot. The CFO, Tim Stewart, used that exact word. We are pivoting. Super Nifty Susie one with the $2 super chat says, do you think Blizzard will have more layoffs? It wouldn't surprise me if they did. If we see some of the more back office functions get laid off, like HR, talent acquisition, could see those things being rolled up to Microsoft potentially. Buck with the $2 super chat says, if first party to PlayStation staggered, brilliant move in my opinion. Well, Buck, from a revenue standpoint, I mean, yeah, if you sell, you maximize your sales on your platform, the Xbox, and once you've squeeze all the pennies you can get from there, you release it on the PlayStation 5 and you make more money, and you probably sell it at $70, and it probably will sell at $70 if it's a good game. Again, they release. Starfield comes out next. When is it? I have to go back and read here. The Starfield DLC. When is that coming out? Oh, okay. So the Shattered Space expansion will be coming out later this year, and that's when Xbox Air has reported that, according to their sources, that the PlayStation 5 version of Starfield would release. So yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at maybe a year between the Xbox and PlayStation release, and they'll probably sell Starfield at $70 on the PlayStation 5, and people will buy it, and they'll make more money. Super Nifty Susie one with the $5 super chat. She goes, how can HR get laid off when Blizzard employees need support paychecks? Because they'll roll those functions into Microsoft's HR payroll infrastructure that they already have. And that's not to say that they'll fire everyone in HR. They may keep some people, but my point is that I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying, like, I think that we could see this happen, maybe, where you see some of those back office functions, positions get eliminated because they're duplication, and then Microsoft, the parent company, will roll those functions in, absorb that into their own infrastructure of HR or payroll. So they'll just take over. Like I've been through, Super Nifty Susie, I've been through 3 M&As, and that's been the case where they've closed payroll. Payroll's moved into so like when we acquired a company back in 2012. They limited not all HR, but some of the HR, and then they just rolled all those functions, responsibilities up into our HR group. Some of the folks that were in HR for the other company moved into our HR team because we were taking on additional headcount, so we need additional resources. But not everyone did. Some of the positions were eliminated, and then again, we absorbed all those functions internally. So that could happen. Nate says, bro, this is the biggest I told you moment in the history of my 30 years of gaming. People trying to tell us Microsoft can afford to just keep burning money. No, they can't. Nate says, little to no growth, constantly declining sales because of Game Pass. We try to tell them, yeah. I don't know. And again, I haven't, Nate, I haven't seen the knock-on effect of Game Pass recently. I know Starfield sold well. So, I mean, that cannibalization, I mean, I don't know. I know there was some early data from Matt Piscatella that suggested that games releasing in, at least games that had reached their retail maturation, like where they've sold, or they've hit like where they've sold the most they can in retail, that when those games came to Game Pass, they actually ended up selling more. Yeah, they said, well, yeah, that's my point. Like, yeah, you said like, well, Starfield sold well on Steam. Yeah, and Game Pass is also on PC, but that's my point. Like, it sold well. There wasn't really that cannibalization effect. I mean, Game Pass is available on PC. Douglas Berry says, I still own my original Xbox. That's the original Xbox is probably my favorite Xbox. Well, it's a close tie with the the 360 was great, but the Xbox One is definitely up there for me. One of my favorite consoles of all time. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, hey, you know what? A lot of the fan reaction from some of the Xbox diehards has been, wow, well, now the best place to play first-party games is going to be PS5 Pro. Again, Microsoft's not looking to compete in the console market. They said, we're not going to out-console Sony. We're not going to out-console Nintendo. They'll gladly take their 70% selling those games on PlayStation. I mean, if Microsoft's goal, and when I mentioned to Sarah Bond, if their goal is to reach as many players as possible across multiple devices, then what you do is you start putting your games that you own that are valuable IPs on other console platforms. Which is what Tim Stewart said. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. I mean, no one should be surprised by this. CTR2 says, BRAP, it feels like how it was with Windows Mobile. That's what Logic's been saying on this show. I think Rand put out a tweet earlier about he retweeted the Xbox era tweet about this, tweeting out the article, Microsoft plans Starfield release on PlayStation 5. Rand retweets, the first of lots to come, some will shock you. There's going to be more. This conversation is going to be ongoing. This conversation is going to be ongoing. I do want to turn my attention, though, to some of the reaction I'm seeing, though, from some of the diehards. And this is where I kind of question, like, if people really love gaming. Like, if you love gaming, then does it really... Look, I understand that, like, people want to buy things and have that feeling of exclusivity or having something that other people can't have or feeling like these companies care about them because they've invested. I get that. And companies will use that. But what I'm starting to see in is that some people just, I don't think they really love gaming. You know, and I think part of the issue too with some of the reactions by some of the diehards is just a feeling of disappointment, and maybe not necessarily they feel lied to by Microsoft, but that they didn't get it right as a community. And I'm not saying the entire Xbox community. I want to make that very clear. But there's some of the echo chamber. There's some of the content creators who were constantly pushing out propaganda about the Xbox and, you know, how their strategy was the best and Sony was bad and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? And you see it now. Some of these content creators are creating a narrative, and it's only going to lead to the disappointment, anger, frustration of their listeners. So I said recently on a BRAP rant, like, as gamers, if this doesn't only apply to content creators, but also game journalism. Like, we deserve better. We deserve better. We need to elevate the conversation that's being had in gaming right now. It is bad. It is bad. So many great games just released the last 72 hours, the last 3 days. I shouldn't say so. That's subjective. But look, there are new games that just released that people are playing and enjoying. But some of these like content creators, like they're just like Eric says, they're misery monetizers. They monetize off misery. Priscilla says subscription apps are future. Priscilla, that is a prediction, but that is not a we don't know is what I'm saying. And as Matt Pixatella from MPD Circana said recently, Priscilla, the data as it stands today doesn't show that future is in fact a reality or going to happen. The misconception, and this is something that was driven by some content creators that are more Xbox centric, that they fail to explain how the consumption of interactive entertainment is different than the consumption of watching a television show on something like Netflix. Vastly different things. Chris says Game Pass on TVs. Okay, yeah, Game Pass on TVs. But that's Microsoft's future potentially. I don't think that's going to be the entire industry. And maybe it will. And, you know, well, I would say it would surprise me if you see Sony with a PlayStation app on TVs. They've had it before with their Bravias. And that's probably coming back because they've talked about leveraging PlayStation Plus. But again, Sony's strategy is a bit different than Microsoft because two different core competencies as companies. Sony, first and foremost, is a hardware manufacturer. They want to drive people to buy their hardware. And they utilize software, their first-party games and relationships they have with other developers to do that for PlayStation. Yeah, PlayStation View. Yeah, that's right, Douglas. PlayStation View. Bender Streak says, BRAP, you're making a huge assumption that these games would sell on PlayStation. They didn't sell their home console. Bender Streaks, just by the math alone, I would imagine that some... I'm not saying all these games. I'm saying like a Starfield will sell more because you have more... The math, you just have more people on PlayStation than you do Xbox. You also don't have on PlayStation, you don't have that contend with Game Pass, cannibalizing your sales. Brap, if this is good for gaming, why not put PlayStation 5 games day one on PC or Nintendo games on Xbox? Because those are vastly, Nintendo and Sony have vastly different business models than Microsoft does. Different strategies, different companies. Companies operate differently in the marketplace. Even if they're in the same vertical, they're selling the same type of thing, they operate differently, have different strategies. We see this with other consumer products. Human, I will never discourage anyone from getting a PC. Never do that. But you know what's kind of frustrating is that you have these content creators, and not all, but you have some Xbox content creators that really just misled their viewers. They would say things like, "Oh, that's not what Tim Stewart, the CFO, meant. He didn't mean that." Well, yeah, no, actually, he did mean that. Oh, They'll never, they'll never put their games on PlayStation. They'll never do that. Yeah, you can't see Sony agreeing with this. What do you mean, Bender? What can't you don't see? You don't think Sony would agree to having Xbox first party titles on their console? Why would you think they wouldn't want that? I mean, think about what that means for their position in the console marketplace. Think about what that means, and think about the fact that they get a 30% cut. From 30% is better than 0%, Bender. So now they get a game that will give them an additional 30% that they never had anyway. And it also, think about what it does within the console space for them. Now you don't have to have an Xbox to play Xbox first party. You can enjoy it on PlayStation 5. Oh, and by the way, we also get third-party content that Xbox doesn't get. We also have our first-party content that you get. But I think a lot of, go back to what I was saying, I think a lot of the disappointment, the anger, frustration comes from some of these content creators that misled people, that were spreading misinformation, disinformation, that were saying things like Sony's broke, Sony's in trouble, that this direction by Microsoft is the future of gaming. It's Microsoft's future. It may not be Sony or Nintendo's future. Again, different companies, different set of core competencies. They operate differently in the gaming space. I mean, I've been hearing that argument about Nintendo for years, by the way. Before there was, Sony's the old model. People have been saying that about Nintendo for years. And look what Nintendo's done. There may be some similarities in strategy, but and unfortunately that's like the narrative that's coming out now by certain Xbox content creators, and it's a little bit misleading. Where they say things like, oh, well, the industry's going this way. No, it's not. It's not completely no. You need to add some additional context to that statement because it's more nuanced than just saying that. And that's the part that frustrates me. Like, this conversation is such more nuanced than some of these content creators give. It's so much more nuanced. And that's what I'm saying. The conversation needs to be elevated. And it's not. Bender Street says, take Forza. I can't see Sony letting Microsoft put that on PS5 to compete with Gran Turismo. I mean, Bender, they allow other racing sims to be put on PlayStation, so what's the difference? You don't think Sony may look at this as an opportunity to get people who were on the Xbox platform to now just ditch the Xbox hardware and come buy PlayStation? And again, if they can get additional 30%, and that 30%, if they get Forza Horizon 8 and it sells 8 million copies, they get 30% of that now. And they get the maybe added benefit of moving more hardware because now they have that ability to, they're in that position where they can say, hey, not only can you get the great PlayStation first party games, get all the great third party support, hey, you know what? If you're willing to wait, now you get some Xbox first party stuff. You get some of their big IPs that they own. Yeah, Captain Ply, I wouldn't say that PlayStation owners do not want Xbox games. I think that's I disagree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Yeah, Theorem says Microsoft Flight Sim is coming according to publications. The Ruham with a $20 super chat. Thank you, the Ruham. I appreciate that. He says, I think Game Pass plateaued in the ecosystem as far as the consoles go. It was too small for big games like Starfield, Indiana Jones, Hi-Fi Rush to justify the sustainability, and I think Microsoft pivoted. I've actually there were some other people that have presented a similar scenario. We did hear that subscriptions have subscription services in general have plateaued, which would include Game Pass on consoles. And maybe it's like, hey, we didn't get the amount of subscribers that we thought we were going to get with Game Pass. We need to make this thing work now. We need to figure out other ways to increase revenue. We just made this big acquisition that needs to pay itself back. Yeah, I agree with, is it Elias? Says PS owners will buy a game if it's good. Yeah, consumers will buy games that are good. They will buy things that they're interested in, regardless of who makes it. Yeah, I wouldn't use the word scummy. This is just business. It's not personal, as the old saying goes. It's just not. I think people and I think if you're on the Xbox ecosystem, and what's really odd is with some of the narrative of, and this is why console warring is dumb. And by the way, we have like 130 people watching. Please hit that like button. It helps out the channel. Appreciate the support. So yeah, smash that like button if you haven't done so already. This is why the console wars are so dumb. A lot of the talking points at the time were things like Sony's anti-consumer, during the ABK trial or trial hearings about the acquisition. It was like, oh, this is great for gamers, more games for gamers across multiple platforms. And now when it's Xbox first party, they're like, oh no, this is terrible. It's like, what? That's why console warring is dumb. Please don't do it. You're just dumb. Some of the responses I'm seeing on Twitter are just mind-blowing. This one individual says, this I will say, I'm not going to mention his name, but he tweets Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, Eric Greenberg. Really like okay, Satya's counting his money right now. He says, I will say this I will say. He's saying that Satya, Phil, Sarah, Matt, Aaron needs to take a stage, a podcast mic, or even a damn keyboard and tell the Xbox community what they can expect. Here's what you can expect. You can expect that you still get games on your Xbox console hardware. That's what you can expect. Okay? Here's what's really weird. This individual says, for over 20 years, I've loyally been Team Green. See, this is the problem. You thought you were part of a team. You are a consumer of a product. You're not part of a team. This goes back to this when I say this, the tribalism. Tribalism. By the way, Logic had a great tweet today about the behavior of cults, which I'll get to in a second. Team Green. What? What is that? For over 20 years, look, I was an Xbox Live beta tester. I've been in the Xbox ecosystem for 20 years. I help build Xbox Live. I never thought of myself as Team Green. I'm sorry. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I believe that kind of investment is deserving of at least a true accounting, a direction of the brand. What? Like, where does this, like, I don't understand where, like, you feel like they owe you to tell you because you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. You made that choice as a consumer because you value the product. And you want to know the direction they're going? They just spelled it out for you. So you have a choice to make as a consumer now. You can either, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay on the Xbox platform. If things go in a direction that I don't like, then I'll just take my business elsewhere. That's what mature consumers do. This is why console warring is bad. This is why champion corporations is bad. This is why thinking that corporations care about you is bad. They don't give a shit about you. Companies do not care. They don't have feelings. They don't care about you. They don't care. As Eric Jackson says, companies have one mission. They want to separate you from your wallet. Understand the relationship as a consumer you have with these corporations. It's a transactional relationship. Stop putting emotion and feeling into it. They don't care about you. They never have. Penner Street says, BRAP, it's not too different than pulling for a sports team, is it? Well, maybe to some. That was an interesting conversation. People are like, what are you talking about, BRAP? It's the same thing. Like, you can't go out there. It's disingenuous to go out there and say, oh, well, you know what? More games for everyone is better. The other company's anti-consumer. And then when Microsoft says, hey, we're going to bring our first-party games to other platforms, then all of a sudden you flip the switch and it's not good. It's disingenuous. It's console warring. So it's like, don't console war. It's bad. Console warring would lead to to you stepping on the rake and consistently falling on your face. These companies don't care about you. They're in the business to make money. Satya doesn't care about you. Phil Spencer doesn't care about you. Sarah Bond doesn't care about you. They don't care about you. So this individual says, I believe that kind of investment is deserving of at least a true accounting of the direction of the brand. The silence is deafening and damaging. Look, I will say this. If you like Xbox, you like the hardware, and you're still getting games, is it damaging? Or do you care more about this idea that you have something that PlayStation fanboys don't have? Because if you care what they think, do you really care about gaming? Do you really care about the platform that you, or enjoy the platform that you say you enjoy? I'm going to read a tweet that somebody tweeted out. And I'm not going to read the individual's name, but I thought this was a very insightful tweet here. People have to understand that Microsoft isn't playing by old school console rules here. You aren't buying an Xbox for the big exclusives. You're buying it for the ease of ecosystem. Like I said earlier, it's part of the ecosystem. Like when you have an Apple phone and buy a MacBook to make your life easier, that's the value. The value prop is, hey, you have a bunch of games via Game Pass that you can access via your PC, play on your phone, through the cloud, and sit down with it at a console. It's closer to the promise of Stadia than it is a traditional console. Is it worth buying a $500 just to be able to have more flexibility in where and how you play games that are on other platforms? Your call. Again, being a consumer. But it's pretty clear that this was the strategy ever since Series X's biggest launch game was a Gears Tactics port. The other thing that's funny about the outrage is that people complained for decades about how much they hated console exclusives. Said they were anti-consumer. The diehard Xbox community did say this. Now we're moving away from them and people are still complaining. Make up your minds. There you go. The best case side effect is that it totally throws console war weirdos for a loop. As they're no longer sure if it makes sense to randomly trash a game that'll come to their system or get early defensive about a mediocre game because it's no longer on a point to be scored. It's a great point. Actually, this is Giovanni Colantonio. He's gaming section lead at Digital Trends. Thought it was a great point that he brought up. And look, I said this earlier. I don't see people like this mass exodus of people. And well, when I talked about, if they're continuing to making hardware, and I think they will, I think people are still going to stay on the Xbox platform for some of these reasons I just mentioned. Again, I said this earlier. Their digital libraries, their friends list, their investment in the ecosystem. That stuff's not going away. That stuff is still there. Some of the other games that were also mentioned coming to PS5, the new Doom Year Zero, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Indiana Jones, and then I've heard Hellblade 2. Attracting new players to Xbox won't be easy. Look, it's about attracting them to the ecosystem. The idea of being able to play your games anywhere. And you look at the potential play with mobile, and being able to penetrate other markets that don't have console hardware or don't have desktop PCs. That rely on mobile devices. I think that's really the but it's also not just that consumer piece that I talked about too, that they're trying. There is that developer piece that I mentioned earlier, where they want to be the middleman between developers and consumers. Sega didn't stay in the console space because financial reasons, issues they had with. The Sega Saturn hurt it pretty bad. The Dreamcast was kind of a last-ditch effort. But the Dreamcast really hurt them. A70. They've been having issues attracting new players to Xbox right now. But outside of being able to attract new players, you got to remember they're essentially a third-party publisher now. They're publishing their games on other platforms, so they're making money that way. So it may not be necessarily about attracting a lot of new players, but but part of that maybe publishing, putting these games in their first party is to get players to have players become aware, gamers become aware of the kind of games they make. And that could be an avenue that leads to someone saying, hey, I need to look into Game Pass. I don't think Sony will allow Game Pass on PlayStation 5. I don't think they want a competitor competing against, their own subscription service. Microsoft would do it in a heartbeat if they allowed it. And we know that because they were trying the emails back and forth with Phil Spencer and Tim Sweeney of Epic, where they discuss, we tried to get Game Pass on Nintendo and PlayStation. They've said no. And Tim's like, hey, keep up the good fight. No, they're not competitors, Ace. The competitive product would be Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. I got to pull up this tweet that Logic put out. I can't find it. So Logic actually responded to Jen Box 360's. I think she works. Let's see here. She's a community manager at Wincy Gaming, Windows Central Gaming, and Windows Central Deals. And let's see here. She put out a tweet. Whatever side of the coin you fall with the exclusivity stuff, the damage that's being done to the community and how this has been allowed to spiral over the past few weeks is hugely irresponsible of the Xbox leadership. A fan base has been purposely built and it's crumbling. So this is Logic's response, and these things that Logic brings up really stood out to me. He said the community was largely built on Cult 101, and you may have heard Logic talk about kind of the more fanatical side of the Xbox community. This community was largely built on a Cult 101. See attached, and he provides this 10 tactics used by the cult to emotionally manipulate their members. Normally, fandoms happen natively. They're not built on the bricks of silencing, Discord, and a few people with access, which has really happened in the Xbox community, by the way. The fact that it was built on, again, I'm not saying all facets of the Xbox community operate like this, but the more diehard fanatical side does. They're not built on the bricks of silencing, Discord, and a few people with access. The fact that it was built on purpose through contrivance is exactly why it's crumbling. 10 tactics used by the cult to emotionally manipulate their members, and he lists this: control, fear, love bombing, isolation, devaluation of outsiders, thought stopping, guilt, manipulation, cognitive dissonance. These are all things that I've seen, by the way, from the more diehard elements of the Xbox community. I mean, I've literally seen somebody who's a diehard Xbox fan call somebody a flip-flopper because the Xbox platform wasn't meeting their needs as a consumer. We all have things that we want from a consumer product, from something that we buy. And if that thing doesn't meet our needs, we move on. We never say, "Oh, how could you buy a Tesla? Go electric? You flip flop from a gas vehicle." We don't do that. That's not how rational adults think. It's not how rational consumers behave. But that when I read this, that point about the guilt tripping, the shaming, like insinuating that someone wasn't, loyal enough. That's crazy. Oh my God. If you think about that, this person flip-flopped. What? Because they decided that the Xbox console just wasn't doing it for them anymore, that it wasn't checking all their boxes. What are we doing? What are we doing? This is why I say the conversation, the discourse around gaming needs to improve drastically. Some of the largest followers, people, some of the larger personalities, if you will, with some of the largest followers, say things like this, and it's just mind-blowing that people fall for it, that people feed off it. And I'm like, do you really like gaming? Do you love gaming? And the whole console war thing's kind of funny because people are arguing over the same thing that they love in gaming. They love gaming. They just do it on different platforms. It's just maddening. Love bombing. We always see the love bombing aspect. Oh, this person's great. Great community member. Loves Xbox. Yeah, all right, Hillary. I love Xbox, Hillary. It's so good. Xbox is good to me. Xbox is so good. Xbox is great. It's so good. Don't flip-flop, though. You can't flip-flop. Gotta love Xbox. Can't flip-flop. You gotta hang in there. To the good, to the bad, Hillary. Kind of like our marriage. Can't flip-flop. Like, what is that about? You know? What is it? Like, think about that for a second. It's kind of sickening in a way. Like, you're going to use guilt and try to manipulate someone to feel bad, or trying to gaslight someone over a gaming console, or because they decided, hey, you know what, this console, it just doesn't really meet my needs anymore as a consumer. What? Cognitive dissonance. You're going to pretend like that CFO didn't say what he said? You're going to twist his words? You're going to pretend you don't understand the English meaning of the word pivot? What are we doing here? Devaluation of outsiders? You're going to devalue those who don't agree with you? Who offer a different opinion? You're going to create a community that's built on whether or not you are a fan of a product? Like, what? You're gonna build a community that's based on conditions of a brand, of affinity through a brand, like of affinity for a brand. And if someone's voices displeasure, you're gonna, what are you doing? You're gonna ostracize them for that, for being a consumer? What's happened? Seriously, what's happened to gaming? What's happened to gaming? These people do not love games. They don't love gaming. When they do this, when they try to shut you up for articulating a well thought out point, it's just this is the problem that I see with the gaming discourse today. And what I've seen with the reactions of the community, the Xbox community, the diehards, and again, not everyone in the Xbox community, I want to make that clear, but the diehards in the Xbox community, the way they're behaving, it's like they ostracized people for saying that this was going to happen. And now that it's happened, they're having a hard time processing it. And at the end of the day, you're still going to get those games to your platform. That's not going away. But the discourse around gaming it drastically needs to improve. The demand better from journalists, demand better from the content creators. And again, I'm not saying all journalists, all content creators, okay? I'm going to make that clear. But this idea of spreading misinformation, disinformation, you have one Xbox content creator saying, oh, this is the way the industry's going. No, it's not. It's not. It's not the way the industry's going. It's the way Microsoft's going. There might be some overlap elements where there's certain things that Nintendo, Sony are doing that maybe are similar to what Microsoft's doing. But when you say stuff like that, it's misleading. It creates false narratives. And then people go out. And what ends up happening? They step on the rake again. That narrative's debunked. That person who's the content creator pivots, starts a new narrative. It's a vicious cycle. It's disrespectful to the viewers who come in and tune into your show expecting, and I get some people maybe listen to these shows too because they need that confirmation bias. But this is video games, for crying out loud. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too old for this. Maybe that's part of the problem. Rice79 with a $5 super chat says, bragging about not buying games and championing Game Pass or supporting devs directly is the reason we are here today. Game Pass was a time bomb. Denzel, boom. Thank you for that super chat. Yeah, Nate says they're constantly seeking validation for something they should be sure of their own. Nate, absolutely. If you love the Xbox, you don't need that support from a community. You don't need that. Why? Like, why? Nate says there were a ton of Xbox content creators saying whatever to try and keep them super chats coming. He's not lying. Nate's not lying. They're misery merchants. That's what Eric calls them. We got to do better. We got to do better. And we don't always get it right on this show. We try to have a conversation. We try to discuss and bring tangible facts, things that we know, that we've read into the conversation. But we're not out here spreading misinformation, disinformation. Trying to elevate the conversation around gaming. Expect more news like we heard today moving forward. And I'm sure there's going to be people disappointed, people creating new narratives to justify this. I don't know why anyone needs to justify what a corporation does. Stop doing that. Stop trying. It's like every time Microsoft has made, and I've been on gaming Twitter for 11 years now. I've done this podcast for 9 years. Every time Microsoft makes a pivot, people run to the defense or run to justify the pivot they just made and normalize it. Look, you don't need to do that. Just enjoy your gaming system. Enjoy the ecosystem that you're a part of. Because that's at the end, that's what matters. No one can take that enjoyment from you. And if you let them do it, then do you really love video games? Do you really love the ecosystem that you're in? And also, I would encourage everyone to go buy a PC right now. I think Nate would agree with me. PC is the best gaming platform. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up the show, everyone. I want to thank you, everyone, for coming by, hanging out with me this evening. This was a very impromptu BRAP rant. I'm sure we're going to talk more about this on Wednesday. I think Mooch is actually doing a special Crossfire tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So I will probably, I may or may not be on that show. And Nate says that's the problem, BRAP. A lot of these people really didn't love gaming like they claimed. Everyone wants to sit at the I've been gaming NES table, but we know the truth. Yeah. Enjoy gaming. That's what it's all about. I used to end the show with enjoy gaming because that's what it's all about. It's about having fun. And it really is. Look, it's great that you meet people online, but some of the stuff that I've seen, accusations of people flip-flopping, insinuating that someone has to be loyal to a consumer product or a corporation. What? No. It's exactly the behavior Logic was describing in his tweet. It's just maddening. Well, I want to thank everyone again. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me this evening. Again, very impromptu BRAP rant. I appreciate the support as always. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Helps out the channel. And if you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And we'll be back next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday, I should say, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So come back, hang out with us. I'm sure we're going to discuss this topic with the BRAP channel, kind of get their impressions, thoughts on today's news. And we'll also be discussing what we have been playing more recently. I've been playing Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Persona 3 Reload. Great to see JRPGs doing well, by the way. And by the way, this month is going to be a great month for video games. Great month for video games. Josh Ayers says Persona 3, hell yes. Yeah, Grand Blue Fantasy really surprised me. It wasn't on my radar. I played the demo and had fun. I was like, oh, I'm going to pick this up. Renee says, Browse, you play the Fire JRPGs. Yeah, I tell you. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out soon. So, great time to be a gamer. Great time to be a gamer. So many games coming out. 2024 has kicked off. And it's been great for games so far. We talk about 2023 being a great year. 2024 started off pretty strong, in my opinion. So, well, good night, everyone. We'll be back this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. If you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you, and good night.